My wife, a powerful CEO, stared straight at me and said, "Go wherever you want, Daniel. If you ever leave me, you'll come back begging for forgiveness." Her voice was cold and arrogant, the same voice she used when talking to weak employees. I had heard it many times before, but this time something inside me broke. I looked at her standing there in her expensive suit, arms folded like she was in a business meeting, and replied with 2 words that changed my life. "We'll see." 3 weeks later, I was 800 miles away in Denver, starting a new job that paid twice my old salary. That's when my phone rang from an unknown number. A woman on the line said 5 words that made my heart drop. "Daniel, we need to talk about Laura. My name is Daniel Harris. I'm 38 years old. And for the last 12 years, I had been married to Laura Harris, one of the youngest tech CEOs in Boston. She built her company, Firex Systems, from a small apartment startup into a $200 million business with hundreds of employees. I was proud of her. I supported every late night, every missed dinner, and every weekend she chose work over us. But somewhere along the way, Laura stopped being my wife and became my boss. Every conversation felt like a work review. Every argument turned into something she had to win. And whenever I tried to talk about my feelings, she shut me down with business words like, "We're not on the same page," or "You need to manage your expectations." The day everything finally fell apart started like any other morning in our perfect magazine-style kitchen. Laura was already dressed for work at 6 a.m., scrolling through emails while her coffee sat untouched. I was making breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, the same thing I made every day. It was one of the few things she didn't complain about. "Daniel," she said without looking up, "I need you to deal with the contractor today. The kitchen renovation estimate is $85,000 and it's too high. Push back on the marble pricing." "Good morning to you too," I said, placing the plate in front of her. She looked at the eggs like they were a bad business report. "Is there cheese in this?" "That's the way you like it. I'm doing a cleanse this month. No dairy, I told you last week." I honestly didn't remember her saying that, but that was normal. Laura expected everyone to keep up with her changing rules and priorities. "Sorry, I'll make something else." "Don't bother. I'll eat at the office." She stood up, still staring at her phone. "Also, your sister called about Thanksgiving. Please tell your family my assistant handles our schedule. They need to go through proper channels." "Proper channels?" I said. "They're not trying to book a meeting. They just want to know if we're coming for dinner." She finally looked at me, annoyed and unimpressed. "Daniel, I run a company. 300 people depend on me. I can't work properly if people think they can call me anytime they want." "If you want." "Structure creates efficiency," she said. "I'm your husband, not your employee. Then stop acting like someone who doesn't understand." "Basic time management," she replied. She grabbed her designer handbag and walked toward the door. "Deal with the contractor. I have meetings all day until 7. The door shut behind her. I stood alone in our expensive kitchen, surrounded by shiny appliances we never used and furniture we never sat on. And that's when it hit me. I couldn't remember the last time my wife truly looked at me. Not a quick glance while thinking about work, but a real look like I mattered. Like I wasn't just another task on her list. If this story feels familiar, if you've ever felt invisible in your own relationship, you're not alone. Take a moment to share your experience in the comments. I read every single one, and your support helps keep these stories going. Now back to the story. That night, Laura came home at 9:30 p.m., which was actually early for her. I had cooked dinner, chicken, with sauce and roasted vegetables, and kept it warm in the oven. She walked right past me, said nothing, and went straight into her home office, closing the door behind her. I waited 30 minutes before knocking. "Laura, dinner's ready." "I already ate," she said. "I'm on a call with Tokyo. Please don't interrupt me when the door is closed." I went back to the kitchen and ate alone. I'd done that more times than I could count over the past year. The food had no taste. Lately, everything felt empty. Around midnight, she finally came out of the office. I was sitting in the living room reading, unable to sleep without her beside me. "You're still awake?" she asked, surprised. "I wanted to see you. We haven't really talked in days." She sighed, the same sigh she used when meetings dragged on. "Daniel, I'm exhausted. Can we not do this right now?" "Do what?" I said. "Have a conversation with my wife?" "A conversation where you tell me how I'm failing as a partner while I'm busy building the life that pays for this house, your car, and everything we own." There it was, the card she always played. She made the money, so she made the rules. I never said you were failing, I said quietly. I just miss you. I miss us. We're fine, she said. You're just being too emotional again. She turned toward the stairs. I have a call with investors at 5 in the morning. We'll talk this weekend. But we both knew that wouldn't happen. It never did. There was always another call, another emergency, another reason her company needed her more than I did. The final breaking point came 2 weeks later at her company's annual gala. It was the kind of event where the city's elite gathered to congratulate themselves, held at a luxury hotel with champagne that cost more per glass than most people. Spent on groceries, Laura had spent nearly $5,000 on her dress for the event. I wore a suit I had bought 3 years ago. Spending money on myself felt wrong when I wasn't the one bringing in the big paycheck. That was another thing Laura had slowly taken from me, my sense of worth. Everything about me now felt measured by income. The night started badly and only got worse. Laura moved through the room like she owned it. She shook hands, made promises, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. I followed a few steps behind like an extra piece of furniture. Every now and then she introduced me as my husband, Daniel, before quickly turning back to more important people. Around 9, I was standing by the bar when I heard her voice rise above the crowd. She was speaking to one of her investors, an older man with silver hair who had made millions in real estate. The key, Laura said loudly, is surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, not hold you back. Success requires hard choices. Family, relationships, even marriage have to support your bigger goals. Otherwise, they become distractions. The man laughed. Spoken like a true CEO. Your husband must be very understanding. Daniel? Laura looked around and spotted me. Oh, he's easy. Very low maintenance. That's his best quality, she smiled. He doesn't need much attention. Like a very well-trained pet. People laughed. They thought she was being clever, bold, powerful. But I saw her face. She meant every word. To her, I wasn't a partner. I was something convenient, quiet, replaceable. I put my drink down and walked straight toward the exit. She didn't notice I was gone for almost 20 minutes. When she finally called, I was already in a cab heading home. Where did you go? She snapped. Bradley wanted to introduce you to someone. Do you know how bad that makes me look? Go to hell, Laura, I said and hung up. She called again. I ignored it. She called a third time. I turned my phone off. When she got home an hour later, I was in the guest room packing a suitcase. What are you doing? She asked, standing in the doorway still wearing that expensive dress. I'm leaving. Leaving? She laughed. Don't be dramatic. I made a joke that hurt your feelings. You're acting like a child. I stopped packing and looked at her. You compared me to a pet. In front of your investors. In front of people who respect you. It was a joke, she said. When did you get so sensitive? I've always been sensitive, I replied. You just stopped noticing, because you stopped seeing me as a person. She crossed her arms, her expression turning cold and professional. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting. If you want an apology, fine. I'm sorry. Now stop packing and come to bed. We have brunch with the Hendersons tomorrow, and I need you there. You need me there? I said quietly. I zipped the suitcase shut. You don't need me as a husband, I said. You need me as proof. Proof that you're not just business, that you have a normal life. But you stopped needing me years ago. Laura's face turned hard. And where exactly do you think you're going? Your sister's place? To complain to your family about how awful I am? She gave a cold smile. Go ahead, Daniel. Run away like you always do when things get uncomfortable. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to that sharp, dangerous tone she used in serious negotiations. If you walk out that door, if you really leave, you'll regret it. You'll realize how good you had it here. And when you come crawling back to apologize, and you will, I might not be as generous as I'm being right now. I picked up my suitcase and walked past her. We'll see. The words hung in the air, surprising both of us. That night, I checked into a hotel under my own name. The room was plain, the furniture forgettable. But for the first time in months, I felt calm. More at home than I ever had in our perfectly designed house. My phone buzzed nonstop. Laura's messages shifted from angry to confused to worried. You're being childish. Fine, have your moment. This is getting ridiculous. Come home. Where are you? I'm worried. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and did something I'd been putting off for months. I started searching for jobs not in Boston but everywhere else. New York, Chicago, Seattle, Denver. Places where I could exist, without living in Laura's shadow. Before Laura, I worked in financial analysis for tech companies. I was good at it. But she had convinced me to quit and help build her company. "I need someone I trust with the numbers," she'd said, making it sound like a privilege instead of what it really was. Way to keep me dependent. Still, I hadn't let myself fall behind. I kept my certifications updated. I stayed sharp in an industry that moved fast and forgot people even faster. Within an hour, I found 3 open roles that fit my experience. Senior financial analyst positions. Salaries between $180,000 and $220,000. Not CEO money, but enough to stand on my own. Enough to prove I wasn't just someone's accessory. I applied to all 3 before I could talk myself out of it. The next morning, Laura called at 6. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. "Where are you?" she asked. Her voice was controlled, but I could hear the tension underneath. "At a hotel." "Which hotel?" "Does it matter?" Silence. Then she said, "Daniel, you've made your point. You're upset, I get it. But we need to talk this through. Come home." "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "I'm done being your afterthought." "Your afterthought?" Her voice rose. "I've given you everything. A beautiful home. Financial security. Connections people would kill for. And you're throwing it away because your feelings were hurt at a party? You still don't understand," I said quietly. "You gave me everything except the one thing I actually needed." "And what's that?" "You." "That's not fair," she replied. "I'm building something important." "I thought you supported that." "I did," I said. "But somewhere along the way, you stopped building a company and started building walls. And I ended up on the outside." There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice softened into negotiation mode. "Okay, I hear you. Come home, I can change. I'll be more present. We can try couples therapy if that's what you want." "I don't want therapy, Laura," I said. "What do you want?" "I want a divorce." The word hung between us, heavy and sharp. I had never said it before. Never even fully allowed myself to think it. But hearing it out loud felt right. It felt like the truth I had been avoiding for years. "You don't really mean that," Laura said. But her voice wasn't confident anymore. "I do," I replied. "I'm going to find a lawyer this week." "Daniel, wait," she said quickly. "Just slow down. Don't make such a big decision right now. Stay at the hotel for a few days. Clear your head. Then we'll talk. Really talk." "There's nothing left to talk about." "There's everything left to talk about," she argued. "We've been married for 12 years. You can't throw all of that away over one fight." "This isn't one fight," I said. "It's 12 years of them. 12 years of coming second. 12 years of shrinking little by little until I became exactly what you described. Something that doesn't need much attention." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I could almost picture her standing in our bedroom, thinking, planning, deciding her next move. "Fine," she said at last. "Go, leave, do whatever you want. But remember this, Daniel. You'll realize what you've lost. You'll learn that no one else will put up with your neediness, your constant desire for attention, your inability to accept that some people have bigger priorities than emotions and hand-holding. And when you come back to apologize," she added coldly, "I'll remember this conversation." "Goodbye, Laura." I hung up before she could say anything else. 3 days later, I got a call from a company in Denver, Tech Venture Analytics. They were a mid-sized firm that provided financial consulting to growing tech startups. They had reviewed my resume, checked my references, and wanted to fly me out for an interview. The interview went better than I ever imagined. The CEO, Patricia Morrison, was around Laura's age but completely different in every other way. She was warm, open, and spent nearly 2 hours talking with me, not just about numbers, but about people. "We've learned," Patricia said, "that our best analysts are the ones who have full lives outside of work. People who go home to families, who have interests, who understand that work is what we do, not who we are. Does that matter to you?" I almost laughed. The question hit so close to home it nearly made me emotional. That same evening, they offered me the job. A base salary of $195,000, bonuses, full benefits, help with relocation. I accepted before I even left the building. 2 days later, I told Laura, We met at a coffee shop. I couldn't bring myself to step back into the house. She stared at me like I had lost my mind. Denver? She said slowly, stirring her coffee without taking a sip. You're moving to Denver? I'm taking the job there. This is crazy, she said. You're making life-changing decisions over one argument. Do you hear how irrational that sounds? I've never been more rational, I said calmly. She leaned forward, and for the first time in years, I saw real emotion in her eyes. Fear maybe, or regret, or the sudden realization that she had misjudged the situation. Don't do this, she said quietly. Please, I know I've been difficult. I know I took you for granted. But I can change. We can fix this. You had 12 years to fix this, Laura, I said. You just never thought you had to, because you believed I'd always be there, waiting for whatever small attention you decided to give me. That's not fair. Isn't it? I stood up. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. You can keep the house, the cars, everything. I don't want any of it. I just want out. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, she said, her voice turning cold again. And when you realize that, don't expect me to take you back. I walked out of the cafe feeling lighter than I had in years. The move to Denver happened quickly. I found a small apartment in Cherry Creek. Nothing fancy, but bright and clean, with mountain views from the bedroom window. It felt like a home, not a display meant to impress strangers. My first day at Tech Venture Analytics felt unreal. People talked about things other than work. They asked about my weekend. They invited me to a company softball game. They treated me like a person, not a role. And Patricia Morrison was everything Laura had never been. She listened. She trusted her team. She understood that kindness wasn't weakness. It was the base that everything else was built on. 3 weeks into my new life, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. Daniel Harris? A woman asked. Her voice was calm, professional, but nervous. Yes, my name is Amanda Keller. I'm calling about Laura Harris. My stomach tightened. What about her? I know this is awkward, she said carefully, but I didn't know who else to contact. I've been seeing Laura for the past 8 months. The world seemed to tilt. Seeing her? I asked. Yes, romantically. I work in her building. We met at a networking event. She told me she was separated, that you were already divorcing, and that it was mutual. I sank down onto my couch. She told you that 8 months ago? Yes, but yesterday I found out it wasn't true. I learned that you only left 3 weeks ago, and that before that, you were still married and living together. She paused. Daniel, I would never knowingly get involved with a married woman. But Laura lied to me, and I believe she's been lying to you as well. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Amanda's voice was quiet but steady. Because I grew up watching my parents lie to each other for years. They destroyed each other slowly instead of being honest. And because when I confronted Laura yesterday, she laughed at me. She said I was naive to expect loyalty, that I was just a distraction from the stress of her marriage. Amanda swallowed. She also said you were probably at home right now, miserable, desperate, waiting for her to forgive you. Her voice shook slightly. There was something cruel in the way she said it. And I knew you deserved the truth. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt anger, but more than that, I felt sadness. Sad that Laura had become someone I didn't recognize. Sad that she could treat multiple people with such casual cruelty. And strangely, relieved because leaving had never been more clearly the right choice. Thank you for calling, I said at last. I appreciate you being honest. For what it's worth, Amanda replied gently, I think you made the right choice by leaving. No one deserves to be talked about the way she talks about you. After we ended the call, I sat alone in my apartment, staring out at the mountains. I tried to take in what I'd just learned. Laura had been cheating on me for 8 months while making me feel guilty for wanting basic respect, while telling me I was too emotional, while slowly convincing me I couldn't survive without her. That phone call should have broken me. Instead, it felt like the final piece of a puzzle sliding into place. She hadn't just ignored our marriage. She had been tearing it apart on purpose, keeping me around as backup, as safety in case her other life didn't work out. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told her everything. This changes things, she said. Massachusetts is a no-fault divorce state. But this absolutely affects how assets are divided, especially if we can show marital money was used to support the affair. Within a week, she had proof. Amanda provided messages, emails, hotel receipts, and restaurant charges. Many paid with our joint credit card. The evidence was clear and detailed. It showed a woman living two lives carefully and deliberately. 3 days before our first court date, Laura's lawyer contacted mine. They wanted to settle privately. Laura was willing to offer a very generous financial agreement if I signed a non-disclosure agreement about the affair. She wanted silence. She's protecting her reputation, my lawyer explained. A public divorce involving infidelity could hurt her standing in the business world. She's willing to pay a lot to keep this quiet. The offer was massive, $2.3 million in cash, half of our investment portfolio, and a buyout of my share in Nexicor at market value. Another $800,000, all in exchange for never speaking about what really happened. I thought about it for 10 seconds. Then I told my lawyer to counter. I don't want her money, I said. I want an honest divorce. I'll take what I'm legally entitled to, nothing more, and I won't sign anything that forces me to lie. My lawyer stared at me. Daniel, this is almost $3 million. I know exactly what it is, I said. It's Laura trying to buy my silence, because she can't stand people seeing the real her. I don't want to be bought. Tell her I'll accept a fair split under Massachusetts law and she can keep her hush money. That evening, Laura called me directly, breaking the rule that all communication should go through lawyers. What are you doing? She snapped. What kind of game is this? No game, I said calmly. I just don't want your money. Everyone wants money, she said. That's how the world works. Maybe your world, I replied. Not mine. You're being stupid. This is millions of dollars. It's millions of dollars in exchange for pretending. Our marriage ended naturally, rather than because you cheated and treated me like an employee you forgot to fire. I'll pass. I made you, Laura hissed. Before me, you were nothing. A mid-level analyst with no future. I gave you everything. You gave me things, I said. There's a difference. You'll regret this, she warned. When you're struggling in Denver, barely getting by on that salary, you'll remember walking away from millions because of your pride. I'm okay with that, I said quietly. The real question is, are you okay with everyone knowing why I walked away? She hung up without answering. 6 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. I received exactly half of our shared assets. After debts were cleared, it came to about $400,000. It wasn't the millions Laura had tried to use to buy my silence, but it was enough. Enough to live comfortably. Enough to feel free. The truth still came out. Not because I told it, but because Amanda wrote about her experience on a women's business blog. She never used Laura's name, but anyone familiar with Boston's tech scene knew exactly who she meant. The article spread fast. It sparked serious conversations about power, workplace culture, and how personal relationships can be abused behind polished success stories. Laura tried to sue for defamation. It went nowhere. The article was truthful, careful, and never named her directly. Then the board at Nexicor began asking questions. Hard ones. Within weeks, 3 major investors pulled out, citing concerns about leadership judgment and company stability. I watched it all happen from 1,000 miles away and felt nothing but relief that I was no longer part of that world. 6 months after the divorce, I was promoted to Director of Financial Strategy at Tech Venture Analytics. Patricia called me into her office personally. Daniel, she said, you've gone far beyond what we expected. Your analysis on the Morrison account saved them $2 million. The restructuring you designed for the Brennan Group boosted returns by 40%. You're exactly the kind of leader we want building this company. The promotion came with a salary increase to $240,000, a corner office, and a small team reporting to me. But more important than the title or the money was something else. Respect. Real respect for my work and for who I was as a person. I had also started dating again. Nothing serious, just dinners and coffee with people who were genuinely interested in me. It was both terrifying and exciting, learning how to exist as a human being again, not as someone's accessory. One evening, I was having dinner with a woman named Sarah, a teacher I'd met at a friend's barbecue, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Daniel, it's Laura. I need to talk to you. It's important. I showed the message to Sarah, my ex-wife. First time she's reached out since the divorce. Are you going to reply? She asked. I thought about the woman who once told me I'd come crawling back. The woman who compared me to a well-trained pet. The woman who was so sure of her control that she never imagined I'd actually leave. I deleted the message and placed my phone face down. "No," I said, smiling at Sarah. "I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." 3 months later, I heard through mutual contacts that Laura had stepped down as CEO of Nexacor. The official statement mentioned new opportunities, but the rumors said the board had pushed her out after more stories surfaced about how she treated people. She tried calling me twice more. The voicemails changed in tone from demanding to desperate. "Daniel, we need to talk about everything. I've been in therapy. I understand what I did wrong. Can we at least meet for coffee?" I never called her back. Some doors don't close with anger. They close with clarity. And once they do, you don't open them again. I never called back. Not out of anger, but because I had nothing left to say. The person I had been during our marriage, the Daniel who thought he needed Laura's approval to feel worthy, no longer existed. A year after leaving Boston, I sat in my apartment in Cherry Creek, looking at the mountains I had come to love. And I realized something important. I couldn't remember the last time I felt invisible. Every day people saw me. They listened. They valued my opinions and contributions. I had friends who genuinely wanted to spend time with me, a job that challenged me without breaking me, and a life that felt fully mine, instead of borrowed from someone else. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, now my girlfriend of 6 months. "Dinner at my place tonight. I'm making your favorite pasta." I smiled and typed back, "Can't wait." In that moment, I knew Laura had been wrong about everything. I hadn't crawled back to apologize. I had no regrets. And the life I had built without her was far better than the one I had with her. Because when you stop accepting crumbs from someone who sees you as less than you are, you realize you deserve the whole feast. And out there are people who will give it to you, not because they have to, but because they want to. Laura had given me everything except the one thing that truly mattered. But by leaving, by choosing myself over her expectations, I had given myself something she never could: freedom. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt invisible in a relationship or your life, remember this. You are not defined by how someone else treats you. You are defined by how you treat yourself. Choose yourself. Walk away from people who can't see your value. Surround yourself with those who don't. Just tolerate your presence but celebrate it. Because you deserve nothing less.